Welcome to the Pleasure Empowerment. Today's topic is shaking, trembling, and trauma release. And my guest is Jeremy. So welcome, Jeremy. Jeremy is a sex therapist, also sexological body worker, counselor, also for couples, and an awesome human being that I was having the pleasure to work together already a few times. And also, really a great body worker where I had sessions myself. And so I thought on this topic, it would be awesome to hear also more of your practices, but also how you experience working together with individuals. So yeah, Jeremy, what do you want to say a few more words about you and about your ethics? I really love, like I saw your presentation at a conference and I really love what is your approach, and also that is very inspiring. So maybe we can start with that.
The approach or ethics or both?
A bit of both.
Okay, right. Hello, and I'm Jeremy. Those things you mentioned that are my professional things. My kind of personal identity stuff is being a non-binary person and being a queer person and a pansexual person and a kinky person, neurodivergent, and passionate about sex and relationships and definitely about healing. So yeah, I really like this topic because when I was younger, I had PTSD and quite severely, and lived with that for a long time until I discovered ways to release trauma and tension, and had a lot of guidance from amazing people for that. And I still, in my private life, are working on releasing my own trauma and getting people to support me and supporting other people to do that with their bodies.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, we share, I think, a similar story on some parts, also the identity parts. And yeah, I really also the healing of my own path through sexuality actually led me also to be really passionate about the topic of trauma, and actually finding also a lot of empowerment through working through my own things and stopping to putting them in a little box and storing them away, what I just used to do for 20 years. And so I was wondering, on your own path, what were like methods that you tried out, and what did work well for you and what did work not so well, maybe?
Yeah, okay. Definitely TRE, which I think you have talked about or going to talk about with some people. That was really profound for me. That was probably the start of the shaking and trembling experiences. And reading Peter Levine's work, Waking the Tiger, before that, and learning about bodies. And with that book, TRE, and then starting to develop my own ways of shaking and trembling, which have been really helpful. And then when I came to sexological bodywork and started to have touch on people's bodies, and discovering that it's possible to touch certain places in certain ways to help people have releases through shaking and trembling, and orgasmic experiences, because the orgasm is a release. And that's why we find it so pleasurable. So yeah, definitely sexological bodywork, so receiving sessions on my own body, and then also learning by touching other people.
Yeah, I also got in contact with TRE the first time in my sexological bodywork training, where we did for 45 minutes the butterfly meditation. And yeah, for me, that was really profound to feel my pelvis shaking and my whole, my legs and everything from alone. And it felt really like magic. And afterwards, also feeling such a calm and release. And so, I really saw the power in somatic work through this lens. And also something that I feel is really interesting is how sometimes doing it in a group, so in a group setting or also with a practitioner, can change how my nervous system feels safe and says, oh, okay, now you can relax, and now you can go into these also deep emotions and in this release. So
Yeah.
how's your experience around this?
Well, talking about groups makes me think the holotropic breath work that I both participated in and then facilitated for groups and individuals. And that is, I think you're going to talk about that a very profound way for release, because we change the oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide mixture, and somehow it allows some release. So we're generally in a kind of holding, and the holotropic breath work can really open people to release and to surrender. So that is a powerful group experience, because we can hear and see other people in the room, and that can kind of inspire us to dig a bit deeper sometimes.
I didn't plan to put holographic breathwork into yet,
Ah,
because I think it's something, because the people mostly work on themselves alone,
yeah,
and so it's not really, it cannot feel very safe. And also,
yeah,
at least in Austria, there is a lot of critiques around some people facilitating it in actually a bit of a harmful re-traumatizing way. So I'm just
okay,
avoiding it a bit. But yeah, I think it really depends on having facilitator that can really, yeah, guide you and lead you through that experience.
yeah,
Um,
okay. Next time I'm in Vienna, we'll do a holotropic breathwork class. Yeah, for release. Yeah, good.
yeah.
But yeah, groups are important. And I've been in a lot of sexological bodywork group experiences of release. You know, the 3 circles one we've done together can be a potential for people having releases by being in a group.
Yeah, I do with my friend ex and colleague, like this anger and emotional release sessions, where we really also dive deep. And so for some people, being at home, having roommates, maybe having family or neighbors, this going into the voicing, really expressing also anger, expressing sadness without needing to worry, can be such a healing and deep experience.
Yeah,
And also at the same time, it can also be a very overwhelming experience.
yeah,
So it's also really important to have people there who can hold this, who can provide emotional support, and yeah, to as a group also hold this container.
yeah. It can be quite scary. I mean, I've had experiences recently where it was to my edge of the level that I could tolerate the release, and I can tolerate quite a lot of the release. And so sometimes, yeah, when really big waves come and really big emotions, it's great to have a support person who's holding space, or a group environment with a number of supporters there.
So yeah, that's also my experience, that in sexological bodywork sessions, when I'm receiving, my body is attuning to the nervous system of the person guiding me. So even if I sense it's unsafe, I still have a calm voice that is guiding me through back to my breath. And that can really support me to then drop in the next wave even deeper, because I know
Yeah,
there is someone that recognizes when I maybe get numb, or when I get a trauma reaction. And so that really allows me to dig even deeper. Maybe we
yeah,
want to talk a bit about, so we did a beautiful session where we explored, my intention was exploring trauma release and pleasure, and combining it. And yeah, in my own research that I already did also with other practitioners, to see how is it a similar energy in a way, that we release. So also the vibrations that I feel through the waves of pleasure and trembling that I feel um, while I'm getting touched in a sexual pleasurable way, similar to those that when I do TRE, for example. And so my hypothesis was that it's the same energy, and that having an orgasm can have similar trauma releasing effects than doing like trauma release.
yeah,
And
definitely.
so yeah, I really loved how you guided me through that. Do you want to talk a bit how you approached that, or what was?
Sure. I just want to go back a tiny bit about just a little anatomy thing about pleasure, arousal, sexual experiences, and trauma release, because we store so much of this trauma in the psoas muscle. And the psoas is directly connected into the pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor is really the place that is having the orgasm. And so by pleasuring genitals, or pleasuring any part of the body that is connected to those groups, the psoas or the pelvic floor, you're going to create an environment for those muscles to release and to start like spasming or contracting and releasing. So your intuition, I think, is so great of like, yeah, of course. What also happens in the head is we live in a sex negative society that says sex should be, or sexual things should be with your partner in a bedroom at a certain way in a certain time. And it's kind of a brain flip when we do sexological body work to go, a practitioner can do something arousing with a person for their healing. That's a whole new concept, I think. And it really needs to be spoken out loud of like, this is valid, this is okay, this is healthy, this is consensual and negotiated with boundaries. And so it's not just like do something sexy together. There's a very clear program about what this is.
Yeah, I recently got a beautiful feedback of someone writing me, hey, I really thought it would be a total waste of money and time. And I really loved how he, and then they said, but now I feel free, I feel happy, I feel connected to my body. And that was such a gift. And so, yeah, to see how it can change how people are interacting with the world by like a fucking 1.5 hours of touch. This
Yeah.
is so amazing.
Yeah.
Like when you look at like how human connection and having a space to express and talk about one's emotions and sensations in the body can be so profound.
Yeah. And the word free use, like what happens is we carry tension. We don't even know we're carrying tension. And it takes an effort to hold tension. And so, of course, someone's going to feel lighter and more free when they don't have to hold and they can let go and surrender and allow and release. You're going to be lighter and move differently and be happier in the world because you don't have to use your energy to do this contraction habit that we create this as a safety mechanism originally when something happens. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense to release. You're going to have a better life, definitely.
Those are so interesting when a client sometimes enter that they sit very like together. And so this idea of when they leave, also standing differently is
Yeah.
already showing so much like this theory of embodiment with your how you stand, your posture is also influencing your emotions, is influencing how you feel in your body. And so by practicing to change also the posture to try out new things, what we also do in these 30 days of self-love is to change things that we always have been doing that way and just adding new things and seeing how our body is reacting and how, yeah, it's creating new pathways. And
Yeah.
yeah, this neuroception, I find it super interesting and
Yeah.
mind-blowing. But yeah, my question was,
Yeah. I think we did 2 sessions when I
yes,
was in Vienna. One at the practice room and one next to Safe Fabrique. And I think like it was a wonderful experience for me because you were in such a feedback experience and you're so open and you were aware of what shaking is. And so I was just kind of guiding a little bit of like with your breath and with the sounds and with the touch to find these points, to find ways of stimulating skin or your genitals or parts of your body so that they could be excited. And then the excitement is what brings the shaking bit.
yeah, what I really loved is how you created this space where I felt like on one hand I'm seen in what where I want to go, and you also give a bit in input so I can try out new things. And that for me, because I had a lot of self experience with the butterfly method, so a lot of release of my hips and of my legs, especially my red leg. And you brought in this how to have a release of the chest, of the solar
Mm,
plexus, the
mm,
shoulder, and also later I had my whole face. And for me, to feel vibration in my face and also really feel like, I know, energy moving out was really incredible. Like the somatic feeling of it was something I really found beautiful.
I think one of the things that was helpful was to remind you to relax. And we have this, we culturally have a habit of tensing toward pleasure and tensing towards orgasm. And actually what happens when you soften and relax, you can have a more freeing sort of experience. So it's a combination of being aroused and relaxed. And then also for you, I think we played around with some different sounds and some vowel sounds. And I think that the E sound was something that moved you.
Yeah, I found it really incredible how different sounds opened up vibrations and trembling of different areas. So what knowing, I don't know, the O was more in my pelvis and the E was more in the chest and area, and really allowing also these trembles and to keep on breathing and not stop breathing was really supporting me.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, this contraction habit that everyone has towards pleasure. And it's such a different thing when you relax and surrender.
Yeah.
It allows these releases to come more easily.
Yes, what I really liked is always you reminding me and relax your shoulders and the shimmy.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
Yep.
kind of shake, a wiggle, or
Yeah.
how would you translate your shimmy?
Well, shimmy, that's a new thing for me in practice I have myself, to shimmy the shoulders, but also the hips. So I'm used to them kind of going up and down, but they can also go side to side. But I think for different people, it's going to be a different shake of a different whatever. Some people's eyelids, flutter. Some people's hands are shaking or their legs are kicking, like it's whatever is going to open first. And that can then, like dominoes, it can open more parts, because we have, do you know Wilhelm Reich and his ideas about armor, body armor? Yeah.
You want to tell it a bit? So for our
I have a very simple understanding, but basically German, Austrian, I can't remember.
it's an Austrian, yeah.
Austrian, yay! And he was a psychiatrist and a body worker. Amazing trivial fact about him is he created the term sex positive, which I think is pretty cool. But he had a concept that we have these, we create armor through places in our body, like jaw and throat and chest and all the way down. Basically chakras, I guess you would also say in a Hindu way. And these get created where if you get some kind of fright or shock or fear, your body will tighten. So if someone told you to not speak, or you speak too much, you might create jaw armor or throat armor. And if your heart got a shock, or if someone touched your pelvis or genitals or anus, you might create armor there to protect yourself. And his idea was that we can, through touch, and he was doing quite extreme deep tissue, like rolfing kind of things, that you can undo or defrost or melt this armor. And then when we do that, then we get to be sort of whole natural beings, like a baby. Babies have this kind of squishy, soft, like meltiness. But as we grow up, we freeze, or we calcify, or we harden, we tighten. And so the armor release, which has become quite a new age, de-armoring is a very popular kind of concept. And sometimes that's wonderful and appropriate, and sometimes confused. But yeah, through touch, sometimes trigger points, you can undo the tensions. Yeah.
What I really liked when we were doing so on the beginning, you just guided me with your voice, and so reminding me to make sounds, to allow, to relax. And then you also started to touch me very, very gentle, and also remind me that it might feel like tickles, but we let go of this idea that it's ticklish and just allow the soft sensation. And so when you touched me on my neck, suddenly I really felt like the energy also going there, and even having some shakes in my neck and head where I didn't think I can have shakes. So it was really beautiful how also then, yeah, I was guided also by your touch, and that was really also an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I'm just also learning about what the word we use is tickle could actually be called very sensitive skin area. And a person, when you touch those areas or tickle them, they will shake. I mean, children can cry and shake and be overwhelmed by tickle. Like there's a lot of adults who have tickle trauma from adults touching them in sensitive places when they're young. But the reframe into this can help release, this is a high sensation place, and I will do it in a range that you can be safe with, and you can say no and stop. Yeah, I think I'm just learning about the power of tickle as a release tool.
Really wonderful. Yeah, I also, an area that for me is really sensitive is the whole bones, and also here around my hips, and this can feel really arousing, but also at the same time very sensitive. So it's a really beautiful place to also arrive in pleasure with a very soft way.
Yeah, I've learned through sex bot and other things that we're so genitally focused in our sexuality, which is okay because there's a lot of nerve ending density around genitals, nipples, anus, but also, lips can be super sensitive places, like you're saying, like neck, inside of arms, around the ribs, behind the knees. We have so many what's called erogenous zones that are also sensitive skin for pleasure and arousal.
Totally. Yeah, also in between the legs is a really wonderful place to explore. So I would love to give some inputs to the people in how to approach the part. So the shaking, I did a little audio that people can be guided through to just relax and arrive in the shaking. And for the second part, it's about going into the trembling. So I would love to show just a few positions, and maybe you can also say a few tips around that, and maybe also as a safety. So like TRE is something that you best make it with a TRE practitioner. I am not. I started to practice that because it was part of my sexological bodywork. Now it's actually not anymore, because they also realize that for some people it can bring up a lot of stored emotions, and that is best supported by a professional. So also, if you feel you are not in the condition to do that, or you just want to go into it for 20% and not the 100, that's fully fine. So really take care of what feels right in your today's condition, or you can just continue doing the shaking or go to the third part. So see how you feel today. Do you have some other safety consideration for this trembling practice?
That's hard. I think I agree with all the things you said. At the same time, it's not predictable. Sometimes you can do a lot of preparation and there's nothing happens. And then sometimes you can just open in a very unexpected way and have massive releases. I think your warning is great. And to know that after you have a session with a professional on your own, the world can be quite different. You can be more sensitive, more vulnerable, more open. So yeah, probably not going to injure your body. I mean, you're probably going to do the opposite, is like heal your body. It's just knowing that, yeah, big things can be released. Very difficult things from the past can be stirred up. So I guess just be mindful, and, if you can have a person sit with you, great, or just contact a person afterwards and say, hey, I've had a big experience.
So also a very important thing that Peter Levine, that I also write a bit in the text of somatic experiencing, is saying is not about remembering what happened. So very often when we think about trauma healing or trauma release, people think they need to remember or they need to know what happened or they need to think about the experience while they release it. Completely not. You just work with your bodily sensation, or you can work with a symptom. So for me, something I have 7 or 8 times a month, I have migraine. And so sometimes as an intention is to release the pressure in my head. And I work with this symptom that I have daily, but I do not go in the initial cause of the trauma, because that can have a re-traumatization effect. And so it's about, Peter Levine describes it of like just removing a bit of the energy in the body and not just making like a.
Yeah, I think that's good. And when I learned TRE, the person who trained me said you can watch television, like you can be reading a book, you can chat with someone. Like the point is to do the release, not to do the processing of the content. To do that with a therapist, that's great. Or I think maybe in your session a tiny bit we did a hybrid, like there was some kind of like psychotherapy kind of stuff happening at the same time as the release. But that's my training is in that, so it was appropriate.
Magic. Yeah, I quickly went to get this in one of the videos of Peter Levine. Peter Levine describes very well, I find, how trauma gets stored in the body and how to best release it. And so when an initial threat or situation happened, and very often when we think about trauma, we just think about war, a giant accident, or sexual assault, but it can also really be way smaller things. And so when something happens, our nervous system goes up. And so when it goes up and then it cannot flee or fight, fawn, then the energy might get stored and suppressed in the body. And if afterwards it cannot get go through a process of release or ending that circle of getting the energy out of the body, because there's many ways, but so it gets stored in the body. And then in a way how you can release it in somatic experiencing is trying to just bit by bit vibrate and getting things out. Because when you have a re-traumatization, it would go like this and crazy again. And so it is not easy to release. It just recreates the circle of trauma.
Yeah. I believe the body wants to heal. Like when you cut your finger, the body can heal the skin. And I think it's the same for our central nervous system. Like our body wants equilibrium and harmony and balance and flow and flexibility. But it's like we need to get the head out of the way to help the body do what it wants to do. And a lot of these practices you're describing are just allowing the body to do what it wants to do.
Yeah, to really trust the inner wisdom of the body to guide us also in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, my head often has really weird ideas on how that should work and about talking about it on stage on a symposium. For me, that didn't work. But yeah, it's also an interesting way sometimes to on our own healing journey. Also for me, even realizing that I had trauma, I mean, I was already such a big step. And sometimes we also go through different stages.
And it's, can I say a tiny bit on the word trauma? Like it came from the medical field about body trauma, and now it's used everywhere. And I like to say to people, there's capital T trauma, there's lowercase trauma, which means like big T, little t. Some people have had like horrifying experiences in their life and total, either acute or chronic experiences of super stressful things. But you can also have one incident, or you can just have a repetitive, destructive thing happen to you. So all the forms of trauma are valid. All of them are in the body. We can get rid of them all. I think some people need some reassuring because they think that what we're talking about is extreme things, but everyone has them. Just living in a city can make stressful traumas in us that need to be released.
Yeah, so that's a bit the trauma-informed way of rather assuming that everyone in the room has a form of trauma, even if they're aware or not. And with that, also seeing how can we, bring in practices that do not reactivate people. And also, it's not about the event itself. So I used to compare myself. I was like, well, that didn't happen to me, so I shouldn't be crying around like that. And it's not about the event, it's about how your body is reacting to it. So if like we would all have been one accident, some might have a trauma and some might not. So it's about how is your body responding to it, and not about the what happens.
Yeah. And I think it's in Waking the Tiger that Peter Levine talks about some studies where people are allowed to shake and cry after dramatic things happen. And they're kind of like encouraged to release, and then they don't have PTSD after. And it's our culture that says to people, don't cry, get over it, be still, be tough. Like those messages are the ones that create the tensions.
Totally. Yeah, so allowing shaking also if you hurt yourself, or if there is an accident, if you shake. So we are trained to stop that. Even sometimes in hospitals they give you medicine to stop shaking. And so if you feel that, just really go into it and allow it and embrace it, and that will really make a major difference if you have later effects of it or not.
Yeah. I want to say I saw a bike accident a few years ago. I was driving and a cyclist was coming down a hill and they slipped and they hit the ground. And I stopped the car and I got out to help them, and they were just covered in blood. And they were shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. And they're like, oh, I'm so cold. And it wasn't a cold day, but they didn't have a language to get what was happening. And the person with them was like, oh, I'll hold you till you stop. And I was like, no, 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 let this person shake this out. And eventually it slowed and it slowed and it slowed. And then they were just like, I'm okay. Even though they'd had like a major accident, the shake also helped, get rid of adrenaline, bring in endorphins, get rid of the cortisol, and some touch brought in some oxytocin. So it was like, yeah, it was amazing to witness this theory in practice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So how should I do some showing and you describe what is happening. So in the exercises, we described 3 different areas that can be released, or 4 actually. So I'm just laying down and you can a bit describe what could be.
Yeah. Are you going to start?
So just other areas would be the head can theoretically also be.
Yeah.
Shoulders.
Yeah.
The solar plexus.
Yeah.
Abdomens.
Yeah.
The pelvic.
Yeah.
The legs. I mean, it also goes down to the toes, so the arms, so everywhere. But how would you, for example, now if I'm here, guide me into going into some trauma or like some release?
Do you want to show the TRE or not?
Yes, because I think today, like in the last part, I can go a bit into that trembling.
Yeah. It's not my favorite, but Janina's now in a position with your legs the way they were. If you bring your feet closer to your butt, and then what can happen is if you open your legs a little, and if you open them, at some point there will be a little shake. So it can happen about there. And this is what you described, I think, as the butterfly legs, where they will tremble or tremor, whatever you call it. They will kind of twitch a little bit in and out. I don't like it because it's working a weird place of the body, I think, and it looks like you're tense as you're doing it, even though it's supposed to be releasing. There's a kind of holding that still happens, but I think it's worth trying.
Show me, like, okay, what else could you, like, laying there's also other places, right?
Yeah, so if you there's like a gym or sport exercise called doing a crunch. Do you know that term? Where you're going to bring your neck, up like that, and you can have your legs up or down. It probably doesn't matter. And what you're doing is you're putting a tension on the abdomen and the psoas and probably solar plexus a little bit. And if you hold it for a little bit, eventually your body gets annoyed and will want to start shaking and saying, hey, this is hard for me. But if you surrender and relax in it, you can start shaking. And that looks like you're kind of relaxed while something's happening. Yeah, and as you did, like as you come down, you'll find points that are greater shake and some that are less shake. And so adjusting the way your abdominal muscles are working will add or subtract to the amount of the shake.
What I found very interesting when we were in our sessions, that it was like a map. And so I was doing these exercises, and at the same time there was points coming up and saying, that's fucking hurting. So my migraine point really got to it. I have another point that always hurts in my back, and we gave some gentle attention to it. So you held your hand, or when you're alone, you can also put your hand yourself and give yourself a gentle massage, and acknowledging this pain, because it's chronic pain, and your body just want to send you a signal. I want attention, I want care. And so give your body some warmth or some touch on that areas that lights up.
Yeah, because that point is saying I'm tense. My muscle is contracted. That's what is hurting, is the muscle pulling. That's what hurts. And it's probably what makes migraine. I don't know. Yeah. Did you want to show more?
We can maybe go through the different positions. Is there another one in the laying position, or would you do the sitting?
I would do a standing one. I don't know if you can do a standing one with that sort of back bend. Can I do it?
Yes, please. Because
I'll try. I don't know if I have space here. It's pretty hard to see, but if you bring your I don't think I can talk and shake at the same time.
I can try to stand. You can describe it. Wait.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah. So if you put your hands back there, yeah, and you slowly start coming back and relax, you'll get a shake from somewhere around your belly or pelvis. It takes a while to get used to this one, and you have to sort of explore how far back to go.
Now I can feel it here in this area.
Yeah,
it's small. It's way more subtle than the other one, but yeah.
Yeah, but if you go back a bit further, you might find, I mean, don't fall over, but you might find there's quite a big shake because you're stretching out the psoas muscle by doing this.
I feel it here also in the solar plexus and in the area.
Yeah. And that's a good one. Different people like different ones, and sometimes it takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah. So what I also tried out a bit. So I usually start in the laying position because there I had the most practice to get my body in that. But another one can be also sitting on one or two pillows, like we did on the pelvic swing, and also here going into movements. And so with some sounding to bring some opening in this chest area. So that can be also really relaxing.
Yeah. And one more I think we did in the session was on the pivoting off the hip. So on your side, and then you can pivot, the bony bit becomes this kind of pivot point. And this one you really need to, it's sort of the expression, I don't know, an English version is to kind of twitch to start it. So you almost need to give it a little push to get the movement happening. So soften.
Almost like fake it till you make it, but you give it a little. That's also what I had totally at the beginning with the butterfly method. I was like for 15 minutes laying there. Everyone was already moving. I was like, what the fuck? And then I just did it like a butterfly, and then suddenly it really started. So it also needed like an initiation, but it also needs patience and sounding. So with breathing and making sounds, we can also really move this energy and allow our body to feel safe and comfortable in going into the practice.
And in that position or on your back, you can also start getting in contact with your pelvic floor muscles, in particular the pubococcygeus muscle, which runs from the front to the back. And that's the muscle that twitches in an orgasm. And you can actually do what's called Kegels, which is like squeezing, releasing, squeezing. And if you do that, you'll eventually get a rhythm where it starts twitching itself.
Yeah. Cool.
Which is orgasm, or making yourself orgasm or something. Yeah.
Would you like to talk a bit about your own journey that you currently explore on trauma release?
Yeah.
As much as you feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I mean, it's still quite confusing for me. It's very new and it's super intense. Some of the orgasms are past my kind of tolerance in a way. Like they're it's scary because they're out of control. So it's which I've witnessed those orgasms with lovers before who are having orgasms where they're really shaking and releasing and what we would call out of control. And for some reason, out of control scares me. I can facilitate it for other people, but my own experience. So yeah, this is self-pleasure sessions, which is appropriate for the program. And very slow, very sensual, whole body touch, me touching my whole body, me touching my genitals, coconut oil, I really enjoy, and a playlist, sometimes an eye mask to take out sensations. And the twitching part is a big part of it, the kind of giving it a push to get the rhythm to begin. And then when the rhythm begins, then to just soften. So I'm lying on my back and I'm just softening my body as much as possible. Sometimes with some kind of yoga stretches or asanas before, and that's really helpful to make the body more soft. For me, there's a lot of leg kicking, as if looks like I'm swimming, but very wild, like very not in a way that I could do voluntarily. So it's really, it's like some electric power point has been stuck in my sacrum and it's just sending electricity down my legs in a very dramatic way. And I really love the one on the side. Like I really get this like pivoting off that hip and I can really get my pelvic floor and psoas to shake a lot that way. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's an exciting adventure for me, and it's definitely changed my whole sexuality in a massive way. I used to be very craving of experiences with other people who would help me to release through sexual experiences and orgasm. And through this experience myself, I had such an incredible satisfaction with myself and such amazing releases that my craving for other people has gone down a lot. So I still love intimacy and erotic experiences with people, but I don't have the grabbing, needing experience I used to have because I'm doing healing with me basically and pleasure with me and release with me.
I agree. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, I had that too this weekend. I was out a lot and connected with people, but I'd say didn't had it to my satisfaction. And I was going home and I was like, I felt still satisfied. I mean, I felt a bit sad about it, but at the other hand, I knew I can pleasure myself. And it's such an empowering step to not then collapse in this self-pity of nobody wants me and I don't know, go into body shaming and things that I really used to do where I've searched all the reasons within myself, and knowing that I can just be my best lover and give myself a really good fuck is just so satisfying. And yeah, it really supports me also in my whole life, because I can be way less dependent.
Yeah, yeah. It's great with a partner or a lover or whoever to take turns and pleasuring each other and holding and encouraging each other. Like, yeah, get really turned on and allow the full. It's a charge that goes through our body. It's electricity or it's energy or whatever it's called. We can really turn someone on with touch and or kissing or sex or whatever. And that's fun. I love that, to take turns with someone, because you're really healing each other through this orgasmic experience and this pleasure experience.
Mm.
And we can have it with ourselves. It's here for us all the time.
Yeah,
Mm.
totally. Yeah, thank you a lot, Jeremy. I think we covered a lot and also shared a lot of intimate private stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how can people work with you? What do you like to do? How do you support people, and how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my website is easy to find. It's just my name, jeremyshub.com. You can also find me on Instagram with my name and on Facebook with my name. And on my website, you can book a free 30-minute Zoom, and that's a really easy way for people to say hello and talk about their needs and to see if what I do and what they seek is aligned. And yeah, I do sex coaching, I do sex therapy, I do relationship coaching and psychotherapy and sexological bodywork. So I do that in person with people in Berlin or sometimes in Vienna. And yeah, but I work online with people in Germany and Austria and Europe and all around the world. So yeah, reach out if you want to tell me some things or seek support or get some coaching. I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah.